come out and step with us, we will be able to stand with you in D.C.
That's Pennsylvania Democratic Senate nominee John Fetterman last week, making one of his first public appearances since suffering a stroke just days before winning his party's primary in May. He's taking on professional TV personality Dr. Mehmet Oz, the Republican, on the ballot, who's ramping up his calls on Fetterman to show up to debate him. With the midterms now just 2 months away, in a recent town hall, Oz had this to say about his opponent. I have tremendous empathy for what it's like to go through health problems. But if that's not the reason you're not debating, you've got to tell us. Because the other possibility is you don't want to defend your far-left radical position. Oz has a point. Certainly, we can't fault someone for their health conditions. But when the job at stake involves a whole lot of public speaking, you have to be able to prove that you have at least some public speaking prowess, not to mention a respectable image. Not sure how his signature hoodies will play on a debate stage. And it's time for Fetterman to start at least acting like he cares. His once enormous lead over Oz is closing. A new Emerson College poll shows him with just a 4-point lead over Oz, with 5% undecided and 3% backing another candidate. Emily Jaskowski, cultural editor at The Federalist, joins me now. Emily, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So this is President Biden's first of 3 stops in Pennsylvania. What does that tell you about the state of the races there?
It's interesting because candidates in a lot of states, and Pennsylvania is kind of an interesting one. But Biden has a long history with the state of Pennsylvania. I don't know that, down in Georgia or in Wisconsin, the candidates are going to want to be seen with Biden. It is interesting, though, that Biden is coming in right around Labor Day weekend, because to the point you raised about polling in the earlier in the segment, what we start to see after Labor Day weekend is the influx of money, which starts to show how the messaging is congealing, what the sort of clear contrast each party is trying to show will be. And with Fetterman struggling to make these public appearances, it seems as though that may be indeed a key narrative to emerge in the fall. And Oz's attacks in that direction, gentle and I think reasonably so as they were when people's health is sort of out of their control, that's probably a preview of what we're going to see as money starts pouring into this race and all of the key races after Labor Day weekend.
It's going to be, Pennsylvania's going to be strange. I mean, let's stipulate that both candidates are probably less than what the parties wanted, this term for such a decisive Senate race. But I don't really see issues being really relevant in this election yet. I see, attacks on Dr. Oz calling it coup d'etat and attacks on Fetterman being a little weird, but I haven't seen real issues at play here. Do you see that changing once we turn the corner after Labor Day?
I think Republicans have always seen these midterms with the economy where it is, with inflation where it is, with gas prices where they are. Gas prices have come down, but they're still relatively high for a lot of people. So Republicans see that and say, historically, the conditions are really good for us. We should be able to run basically a cardboard box in some of these races and still win. But I don't know that that's actually going to be the case on the tail of all of the legislation that President Biden and his executive actions. He's working really hard to give Democrats something to talk about. Now, whether it's popular around the country is another question. Right. But they're trying to combat the sagging economy. I mean, that's why they called their bill that has basically nothing to do with inflation, the Inflation Reduction Act. It's about the messaging. So that's what they're going for really hard.
Well, it's about time they learned something from Frank Luntz, don't you think? I mean, it's, name it what you think the people want to hear. Donald Trump said he endorsed Oz early because he thought he could win the general. Now sources are saying he regrets that. Who has more to lose by being linked to each other, Oz or Trump?
That's a really good question. Maybe Trump, actually. Trump has done well in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is one of those places where Donald Trump was able to flip in 2016 some of those white working class voters who voted for Barack Obama. And so, that might not be the person who looks at Dr. Oz and says, yes, that's my populist champion. It's a much harder message for Dr. Oz to make because, again, the grocery store video is a really good example that you just mentioned, coup d'etat, talking about the price of his coup d'etat. He can't pull off populism like Donald Trump can. That said, he does have huge name recognition. He can string sentences together. He can talk about issues coherently. And if the candidate is next to him is a fairly radical person that is linked to radical energy policies and a bad economy and radical crime policies, as crime is rising in cities like Philadelphia, that's an advantage for Oz.
So you got to think that when you're running for public office, you got to show up in public, and debates are very central to being part of a United States Senate. As somebody who used to work there, you got to think that a TV pro like Dr. Oz is going to do well in a debate against Fetterman, who seems to be having a little difficulty after a stroke. Do you think that good debate performances, should there be debates, would be good for Oz, or help him win this state?
Yeah, I think debates are good for Oz because he's obviously had a kind of magnetic charisma personality. That's how he was successful in television. There's a huge question as to whether that translates into politics. Right. I mean, that's obviously an open question because we haven't seen him do it yet. But if if the other candidate is someone who is struggling for health reasons, I mean, again, that is an advantage for Dr. Oz, no question about it. It's some little things. I mean, people think about the JFK debate, the JFK-Nixon debate. There are little things, just being comfortable in front of a camera, that can make a world of difference. So I would assume it's an advantage.
It takes about 3 segments from what I'm told. Emily, thank you very much for joining me. We'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.